Right Town Park Operations and the Restaurant RFQ. I've asked Debbie to modify the dates, and we will be sending out the RFQ this week. They had not been sent out previously. Debbie, in the packet, do we have the latest ones with your dates in it? Okay. Page 10. Yep.
Would you like me to read them out?
Yeah, assuming that this RFQ is issued tomorrow or certainly by the next day.
That the RFQ will be issued tomorrow, January 20th, 2016. Information meeting and site visit will be on February 4th. At Rye Town Park, meeting at the Administration Building, 95 Dearborn Avenue, Rye, New York. Deadline for submission of written questions will be March 4th, 2016. The date of written questions will be answered will be 1 week later, March 11th. The RFQ submission deadline will be March 18th, 2016 at 4 p.m. Top responses will be selected on April 6th. That announcement made April 6th. Presentation by top proposers will be 1 month later, May 6th. And the selection of the top proposal will be announced by June 3rd.
Any comments on that?
I think this may be a little bit of an aggressive schedule. We obviously want to cast as wide a net as possible to get as many responses as possible. I don't think it behooves anyone, us or anyone, to try to rush it, especially given our experience the last time we put out this RFP and we didn't really get a response. I think we got maybe one.
We got one.
So, and even under this timeline, it says selection of top proposal June 3rd. I mean, we're really not gonna put this into operation, I don't think, this year, for this summer. I mean, we're already well into the summer by then. So I mean, I guess I'm okay with the timeline as it currently is, but I can envision us, depending on the type of feedback we get, maybe deciding to extend it at some point in the future.
I think that it's always our option to extend it if we don't get the responses. We already know, based on discussions that both former Supervisor Carvin had and I've had, that we have at least 2 people that are actually interested in going forward.
So for those people, this deadline isn't a problem because they're already kind of in the hopper.
Well, but I would argue with that, because the one piece that I think is really tight is from the date questions will be answered to the submission, which is only a week. They may not be substantial questions, but if they are, and we don't get back to them till March 11th, I think that's really tight. So I don't know. I would argue not making it tight to begin with. I'm not saying stretch it out a lot, but that one particular thing, I think I would.
Well, I can see. I don't know what kind of questions could be asked that we couldn't answer in a week. They're only questions.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just
How do
saying
the
if
other
we
members
take a
feel?
week, then.
The other commissioners?
We hope we get the responses. That's number one. That's always a positive, to get some responses.
So if they're calling up and asking verbal questions, I'm assuming we're answering, or are we saying to them, you must write them down and submit them to us?
All questions got to be in writing so that everybody has a fair opportunity to see that, solicitors and et cetera. But that's what we did in the past. All questions are in writing. We have a requirement for that.
The only other thing, if February 4th doesn't work for some people, I assume that we'll be flexible on that date?
I think we could be flexible on all the dates.
Okay.
I don't think that anything is written in stone. If things come up, if February 4th we have 12 inches of snow, I think
Right.
maybe we can do that, and at our subsequent meeting we can Or we can do it in, by correspondence among the commissioners saying we'll extend the deadline to such and such a date. I think the key is that we see what kind of responses we have, what kind of proposals we can consider. And as for operating this year, it remains to be seen as to what would transpire. I can foresee that we would start on a course similar to how it's been done in the past, and then I can even see a co-management type of agreement like they're doing at Playland right now, if somebody was chosen. But that all remains to be seen. We just don't know. We don't know if we're going to get a real response even from the people who have already told us, yes, we're interested in doing it. And that's why we're going to send out the RFP to see what's there.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
You may or may not like it, but maybe just say proposed timeline as opposed to timeline.
No problem.
At least.
Very good. Excellent. Proposed timeline.
And I have one other question, and this is the very first thing that's going to happen, which it says January 20th, that's tomorrow, RFQ issued. What are we doing to issue this? I mean, how are we advertising it? How are we getting it out there? How are we promoting it to as many audiences that might be interested in this type of thing?
We have the original distribution list, which has about, I'm going to say 50-some-odd developer names. If you'll recall, we also advertised in, and I know I bastardized the thing, but there's a development, tri-state development type of association that has a magazine. We would advertise there. That also provides for more outreach. And we have a handful, and I mean, count them on the fingers of one hand, of specific people that have requested to be kept up to date on that.
So we'll send it all to them. And I would also suggest that Bishop, I don't know who's on, everybody on the list. Do we have anybody on the list that is just a restaurant operator?
No, but we have one or two people that have contacted us that are specifically interested in just restaurant operations.
Well, those people are important because the RFQ is very specific in allowing a response for the park and the restaurant, the park only, and the restaurant only. So we want to make sure that that's all covered. And I had a discussion with Mayor Sack. They issued an RFQ for Wainwright House.
Whitby Castle.
Whitby Castle. And that's the kind of list that you might want to have for caterers, for restaurateurs, and maybe some of the restaurant groups that are in the area. We have several restaurant groups that manage several restaurants in Rye, even in Greenwich. Pardon me? Pearl Group is one. You might want to try the Z Group, which is in Greenwich, but they also have the Aurora Restaurant in Rye, and they have 3 or 4 restaurants on Greenwich Avenue as well. So there may be other groups as well that may have an interest in just the restaurant.
Yeah, no, Gary, I'm glad you brought that up, and we did speak about that, and I'd be happy to put Bishop, you and Debbie in touch with the people at our golf club who, had been involved with that, because I think we got a few interesting responses that might be worth pursuing again, and even their list, might be helpful. Even people that didn't respond to that particular RFP. Because I think they did.
I'll go back and look at my notes because I was on that committee to do that. So I will go back and look at my notes.
Also, I know we don't generally advertise or have stories in the paper beyond our own local area, but this is the type of thing that maybe the Journal News might be interested in, that we're putting this RFP out because people do read the Journal News on a more regional basis, and that might be a good thing to get out there.
Excellent. We should work on a press release for this and release it to the Journal News, the Westmore News, the Howard Sturman's group, all of the local outlets. Anything else on this?
I would just want to make one other suggestion. The last three choices there in terms of the top responses selected, the presentations of the top proposers, and the selection of the top proposal, perhaps we would want to tie that to the meetings. For example, the third Tuesday in April, the third Tuesday in May, the third Tuesday in June. Otherwise, you'd be calling special meetings in order to
agree.
accomplish your goal.
I agree.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Yep.
The only other thing I would add is that since we're dealing with a time of year where there's the possibility of snow cover that sticks around longer than we'd like, it might be unfair to prospective proposers to come and look at the park that's snow covered, that's all. So, I don't know, I tend to now understand, looking at the dates and the timelines being as close, as tight as they are, that maybe Mayor Sack has a point, maybe stretching it out with the reality of, even though we have the option to stretch it at any time or change the dates, maybe being realistic in terms of some of the date deadlines are in the middle of the winter, where there's a likelihood of snow cover, that's all.
Well,
Do we want to deal with it as it comes, or we could deal with it now?
I think we could deal with that as it comes, because it can always be adjourned, and most of the people responding, it's not like Rytown Park is an unknown quantity. And the buildings are going to be there, the pavilion is going to be there. The beach may be under snow, but the beach is going to be there. So,
Right.
True.
I guess here's how I'm looking at the overall timeframe. So it says submission deadline, March 18th. That's less than 2 months from today. So basically, in less than 2 months, this has to get out there. Someone has to learn about it. Someone has to decide that they might want to submit something. Then they have to figure out what their application is going to look like, and then they have to submit it in less than 60 days. So, I mean, like I said, for the couple of people that we've identified as proposers, that's not going to be as big of a deal, but for people who we don't know about right now, it might be. So that's my only concern.
If I may, we could solve the problem two ways, and that is, we could add a second site visit date, maybe a week or two out. The possibility of having serious weather problems and everything, two
Well, we
successive
could've-
dates.
the problem with that is, then everybody's going to come at the second date.
Not necessarily.
Well,
They might
a
want
lot
to
of-
come,
a
they
lot-
actually might want to come twice, so I wouldn't
We
find,
could
I know
always-
that that's what happened at
I
Whitby
think we
Castle,
can-
many came back twice.
We can always arrange for a second comeback if people want to do it. You know, this is not like it's written in stone. If you get a call, it's like, we'd like to see it again, we'll arrange, we'll give people a week's notice or 2 weeks' notice and come back. And we can always adjust the dates. But I think we really need to gauge to see if people are interested in doing this once and for all. And if the people who have evidenced real interest are really interested, or they're just, blowing smoke.
Who will be their main point of contact when they,
Debbie?
Debbie, okay. So you could communicate with them
I
that
do
we're
agree, though,
flexible.
with Mayor Sack that, 60 days to tour the site, and come up with a response to this, and come up, in some cases, with a business plan. Well, in all cases, with a business plan, is going to be tight. So if we're going to leave it as is, I think we really need to be prepared to push this. Also, keeping in mind, depending on how we push this, Bishop, last 2 years, I believe we haven't met in August, if I'm correct.
You're
So
correct.
It's just something to keep in mind, that if we do push this, we'd be pushing it a month, because typically it's hard to get a quorum in August.
All right. I mean, my suggestion, let's leave it as, and see what happens, and we can see what happens at our March meeting. Because of our March meeting, we've gotten no written questions or anything else. What day is our March meeting, do you know?
I have it.
15th.
Yep, 15.
So hopefully, even though the submission deadline is 3 days later, hopefully we'll have some real interest by the 15th, and we can, at that time, make a determination as to whether, if nobody's called us on the 15th, then we'll know that the deadline submission is either unrealistic or nobody's really interested. If we get a call from 3 people who say, we're really interested, but we'd like the deadline to be 2 weeks later, then we can amend it on the 15th. Right?
Okay.
All right. There's nothing further on that.
You're gonna put it on the website, right?
Pardon me?
You're putting it on the website, right?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes.
I gotta change the front sheet too.
Hi, Emily Hurd, Rye resident. Just curious, this is the first I've heard of the Rye Town Park going out to bid with a RFQ that would encompass overseeing the whole park. I understood that Seaside Johnny's lease was up in December, but and it sounds like there are options here, so people can come in and provide you with a proposal to basically run the entire park, including the restaurants, but they can also just submit something for the restaurant.
That's correct.
Okay, and is there a
Just the park.
or just the park? And is there a goal that the board or the commission would really like to see? Do you think that this will deter restaurants, for example, from putting forth a proposal if they're not interested in doing anything but that? And have you done this in the past? And sort of how has this worked before?
Or the RFQ?
Yes.
Well, they did an RFQ about a year ago, and they didn't get a lot of proposals, but we've had some interest from other people who came along subsequently to the RFQ, including Dan Biederman and the people in United Parks have evidenced some interest in it. So, the only way to gauge true interest is to see if they come back with a proposal and what kind of a proposal it is. And the commission is not obligated to accept any proposal. And the commission has the ability, when they get a proposal, to negotiate with the people to make the proposal better in one way or another. I mean, that's what the commission's job would be.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. If nothing else, new business? I think we have some information on a biometric time clock. I believe, Bishop, you've done some research on that?
Yeah, we're trying to just gauge the interest of the commissioners. This is the lowest cost proposal that we've been able to find. What attracts us to, first off, biometric time management is, we're hiring 75 people in an outdoor type of environment. They're all over the place. And to be able to track their time is important to us. So right now, they're using regular punch cards. It's difficult to ascertain that those cards are being done accurately and correctly. This system interacts with our current payroll processor, and in fact, all the main payroll processors that are out there, ADP, Paychex, et cetera. So the idea here would be that if we could look at biometric time management, that could save some management time in terms of the time that we are preparing time records, both at the park as well as in the supervisor's office when we're processing payroll, because this system will allow for electronic transmission directly to the payroll processor. The downside here is, since talking with some people about the fingerprint time clock, if you will, that in an outdoor environment, fingerprint time clocks are not necessarily the best recommendation. There are problems with dirty hands and dealing with the actual fingerprint reader. And the recommendation has been made that perhaps a palm scanner is a better approach. The problem here is you go from a system that'll cost you, say, $1,500 to put in, and you jump to $3,000 or $4,000 for a single station. So these are areas that we still have to explore, but the concept we think is an excellent one. I think eventually there's payback to Rye Town Park in terms of the expense or the time and expense of keeping track of the time.
Any comments from the board?
Just a question, Bishop. I didn't really realize that this was a problem in the past. Because we never, at least in the years that I've been on the board, and Benny, you've been
Yeah,
here
I
longer
agree
than
with you. I
anybody.
didn't think there was a problem either.
You know, I just didn't realize that there was a problem in terms of people either potentially what they call buddy punching here or anything else.
It's not really a problem, but you don't know what problem you have. I think, you know, with the biometric option, you have a lot more sense of confidence that what is there is accurate, because I can't duplicate your fingerprint, I can't punch your card, I can't time you in any way. The real savings is more on the part of Terry. For example, Terry does the time management, so she has to now read 75 time cards.
So this is going to upload directly into your payroll system.
That's correct, and that's where we think A, there'll be less error factor, and B, much less management time spent in collecting that time.
So if there's an issue with respect to it being for an outdoor system, why don't we just keep it inside the office?
Well, it is inside the office, and that was our intention, that we would keep it inside the office. I mean, it's in a closed area now. The reference to outside is that we have a lot of outside workers. So when the maintenance guys come in, if the maintenance guys have grease on their fingers or something, you know, that perhaps will damage the reader item. Remember, we're at a beach, we have sand there. Eventually, that grit starts to affect the reader.
How about if
Our
they
concern
wa-
is just
How
that.
about if
They
wash
said
their
that that's an
hands?
issue?
How about if they wash their hands?
Yes, they
have a
you know,
little-
I
To say, nothing a bottle of Purell won't solve.
Yeah.
well,
Is there a
again,
place to wash their hands?
we're
before they
going to
do this?
try and pull together the second option as well, just so you have an alternate to look at. We'll put some pros and cons together in terms of both systems. And one of the things I think we really need to do is we need to talk to some Paychex clients. Our Paychex is our current provider for payroll, to make absolutely certain that we understand the connectivity to Paychex and make sure that we're selecting a system that is easy to implement.
What do other businesses use? Like, what does Playland use? I mean, I assume they have a similar issue, just on a larger scale.
I honestly don't know how they do their time.
Retinal scan.
It's- all right.
Well, we could
Let's
find
find
that
out.
out, too.
Oh,
They
sure.
may-
Can we
they
get-
may- My guess is, since it's county-run, they probably use the old card system, I would think. Yes, Fred, Mr. Joffrey first?
Yeah, just for the record, we don't.
Could you speak in the microphone, please, Freddie?
Just for the record, we don't have a current problem there, because our system, we have a camera on it, and any one of us could watch that at any time during the day. But this is probably a more efficient system that would help us with our employees, say Terry, with the time it takes for her to reconcile all the cards and all that. So that's where the savings would come in.
Okay.
Can we get a sense of how much that really is in savings so we can compare it to how much it's going to cost us? I know it's going to be a bit of a guess, but if it's really that much of a savings, it'd be
Well,
helpful to quantify it a bit. I know we're not going to be exact.
Terry would be able to give you.
No, but that's worth
Yeah.
real money, though. A time savings for you is worth real
She
money.
I think that we just,
And
going
less
along with Julie
mistakes.
said.
Not that I would suggest you make mistakes, but
yeah, I mean, how much time? Forget the money, because time is money. How much?
how often?
Per paper.
Is that each week?
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Recognize that there's also time spent in the supervisor's office, a comparable amount of time, taking the data that Terry has put together and now putting it into the payroll software.
But you're not recommending this to us yet, right? You're still doing some homework?
No, we just wanted to gauge
heads
the
up.
interest of the commission that, you know, this is an expense that we would consider putting into the capital plan, and that, you know, although we found the very lowest cost system out there, the thought process is we may want to entertain something that is a more effective and possibly more reliable. The other thought I have is we could easily buy 2 of these cheaper systems and understand that if you mount them side by side, that you would always have backup. If one system began to give you trouble, you just, start using the one on the right and have the other one repaired.
I think I can say that we're interested, and I think we should go forward and explore it and get some more definitive numbers and figure out where it goes. All right. That young lady?
Megan Corbett. I'm a neighbor of the park, and I'm also involved with the Friends. Just, you mentioned what other organizations use this kind of thing. The RIY uses a palm print scanner for their employees. They have many, many part-timers, and they're open from 5:30 in the morning till 11 p.m. at night, open Saturdays and Sundays. And they probably found that, and they too are a nonprofit, that this is the most effective and efficient way of, processing.
That's a good recommendation.
Yeah, RIY is a pretty good recommendation. I also have a second question that refers back to the RFQ. So currently, the Seaside Johnny's is operated, I forget by the name of the gentleman, and his lease is coming due in December. Will he be one of these, is it likely that he will be one of these parties who will be interested?
I would think that he would want to,
He'd be first
submit
in line.
that, I wouldn't say first in line because it has to go out to the world.
First in line
Right,
to get
right.
his in.
Yeah,
Would be-
but he
would
is
certainly
interested in
be-
continuing.
He would probably be the most interested in continuing.
Okay,
Requested
that was
on-
my question.
On several occasions last year, I mean, I don't know if you know this, he's requested lease extensions,
Yeah,
a couple times, right?
Yeah, but he doesn't have a right of first refusal. We don't go to,
No, I understand. I just was thinking maybe he had said, I'm done and I'm not interested in renewing, but he, as far as we
by
know.
no means, no, he's very much
He's very much interested. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If there's no other business before the commission, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.